Welcome into the DFS Den. It's Dave Eddy here, aka Corporal Eddy on Twitter. We've made it into the divisional round here for NFL DFS. I'm going to be doing a video for each one of these games as well as a video for the slate as a whole, all 4 games included. So let's talk about Showdown here. Showdown is different than, my typical main slate videos that you're probably used to that I did all year long. In Showdowns, you've got a different format. You've got one captain spot where their salary is going to be 1.5 times what it is in the flex, but their points are going to be 1.5 times what it is in the flex as well. And then you've got a certain number of flex spots. You've got 5 of them, so it's going to be 1 captain and 5 flex spots. I think the best way to be successful in Showdown is to have a very well correlated, lineup that goes around your game theory. So in this particular game, Jaguars versus Chiefs, I'm expecting it to be high scoring, but I'm expecting the Chiefs to win. So with a high scoring game in mind, that's going to not necessarily eliminate defenses for me, but I'm probably going to be playing very minimal at best defenses. And I'm going to be a little light on kickers as well. A lot of times defenses and kickers are a decent way to save some money while still putting up more than I think people typically expect for points. But in this matchup, I'm not thinking along those lines. I can see something along the lines of a 31, 27 type game. So somewhere maybe in the 60-point neighborhood even. So that's how I'm going to build. I'm going to build expecting that, the Chiefs are going to win a high-scoring game. So when I build my lineups out, I want to keep that in mind. I'm looking more towards the passing game for both sides of the field, for example. So, it's a little bit different with Showdowns than it is with the main slate. So just something I want you to keep in mind, and I want you to know kind of where my head's at as I'm building these lineups. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into top captain picks here. And, for me, I'm looking to start off with, Evan Ingram is probably my top captain here. I think he's criminally priced on DraftKings at just 5,800. He is basically, that's in the captain spot. He's, 5,800. In the captain spot, he only gets up to 8,700. And you compare that to someone like Kelsey, who's $1,100. So you are getting someone who is, about half the price as Kelsey, but is putting up, at least recently, similar numbers. So I more so think it's a misprice of Evan Ingram. And again, if I'm stacking a pass catcher in the captain spot, I'm pairing the quarterback with him. That, Evan Ingram has a massive game in a high-scoring affair where Trevor Lawrence is not a big part of that. It's not like Evan Ingram's running, a couple touchdowns in or something. So in my Evan Ingram lineups, I would make sure that Trevor Lawrence is there. I also like Jerick McKinnon. Again, he's a running back, but he's very heavily involved in the passing game. He has been on an absolute tear here recently. And being that, the Chiefs are going to score points, I like having McKinnon in the captain spot. And even though he's a running back, because of, how many touchdowns he gets, especially through the air, I will be pairing him with Mahomes when he's in the captain spot. Patrick Mahomes himself is obviously going to be in play here. I'm going to be making sure that I have 2 pass catchers that are going to be forced along with him in the captain spot. Being that the game is going to be high scoring, in my opinion, I don't see how Mahomes is optimal unless he's bringing along at least 2 pass catchers. I have some interest in Zay Jones. Part of it is, again, he's relatively inexpensive, $6,400 there. And, you compare that to, a guy like, we'll just say even Christian Kirk, who's coming in at $8,600. So, Kirk obviously has a little higher ceiling, but we've seen Jones have, ceiling games, and he had one against the Chargers, 8 catches, 74 yards, and a touchdown. That's good for over 80 points. So he's had games like that this year, and we're going to need the salary because, Kansas City players are not going to be cheap, which is an example of why I think I'm going to be probably more underweight on Kelsey than it makes me feel comfortable, but we'll get to that. And then I got to have probably a couple shares of Trevor Lawrence in the spot. Kansas City defense, not good against the pass. And again, expecting a lot of points here. So, when I'm putting Trevor Lawrence in the captain spot, I am stacking him with multiple pass catchers. So not a ton of options to choose from the Jaguars. They are pretty condensed, with who touches, the ball for them. So, between Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, and Evan Ingram, I just have those 4 guys. So it's not quite the wide array that you have to choose from with, Patrick Mahomes. And then quarterbacks themselves in general, again, going to have a little bit of Mahomes, going to have a little bit of Lawrence, but I actually think I'm probably a little more interested just in their pass catchers. Typically, pass catchers, are more likely to be an optimal captain. They're usually a little bit more unique as well. I think a lot of people are going to be playing Mahomes in the captain spot, and I get it. But, I like Ingram. I like McKinnon is probably my 2 top captain spots there, probably in maybe the 40-50% neighborhood apiece, somewhere in that area. And then maybe a couple stragglers. Like I said, I'll make sure I have Mahomes. I'll make sure I have a Lawrence, and then we'll just kind of go from there. But probably going to have a lot of Mahomes in general, probably 80% plus between captain and flex. Not quite so much Lawrence. Probably looking more along the lines of 60% there. But even when they're in the flex spot, because I expect a high scoring game, if they're going to be optimal, I'm going to have 2 pass catchers with them. Same thing as what I would do with them in the captain spot. But, they're going to be popular, I think, in this matchup based on the way I think the game is going to go. I think that they're both going to be good plays. So don't hesitate to get them or get them both into your lineup. I almost surely am going to have a rule that says I have to have at least one of Mahomes or Lawrence in each lineup, be it captain or flex. Granted, that probably would happen naturally on its own, but I like to just ensure that happens. All right, so running backs. Like I said before, I have a lot of interest in McKinnon. Between the captain spot and between the flex spot, probably going to have 80% plus exposure to him. I don't necessarily know that I want to do 100 because 100% exposure in showdowns does leave you very vulnerable. But I do plan on having quite a bit. I'm interested in ATN. He hasn't been doing nearly as much work in the passing game as I would have expected to see from him this year. He's probably good for somewhere between 1 to 3 catches, somewhere between, 15, 25 yards. So you're not getting a lot out of the air from him. You're going to need him to, probably get you the 100-yard bonus as well as score a touchdown for him to be optimal. Not saying that won't happen, but probably looking to be, 40% and less on him, maybe closer like the 25% range. And then I think Pacheco is actually kind of interesting here. I don't see him breaking the slate by any means. At $6,600, his salary is interesting. McKinnon is only $800 more, and I think McKinnon has a astronomical ceiling compared to Pacheco. But I think Pacheco does give you, some leverage there because I don't think he's going to be nearly as popular. But I can't really see many game scripts where, he's going to score you, the 20 points that makes him an optimal play here. You're talking about, 2 touchdowns and, 80 yards on the ground, which sure it's feasible, but in this matchup, I'm thinking, passing game is much more likely to hit. So that's where my exposure is going to lie. All right, let's get on to receivers here. Like I said, I'm looking more towards pass catchers here than the running game, even though McKinnon kind of fits into the passing game. I mentioned I like Zay Jones, with his price and his potential ceiling for that price. He's probably going to be my highest owned receiver. For KC, Juju is interesting. Kadarius Toney is interesting. You can always get away with trying some MVS. I think Justin Watson is kind of interesting. He's the bare minimum 200, and all he's got to do is catch one ball. And, he's been hitting some big plays. So he's got to catch a 27 yards and a catch of 67 in the last 2 games. If he does any one of those, he becomes a great play for you. But you know that it's risky, especially without knowing what McCole Hardman is going to be this week. And then, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, I'm interested in having some exposure there. Again, I'm expecting a lot of passing in this game, so I do want some exposure, a lot of exposure to pass catchers. Tight ends. Normally tight ends are a dumpster fire. This is probably as good of a slate as it's going to get for tight ends. We've got Evan Ingram. We got Travis Kelce. I talked earlier about Ingram being my top-owned captain more than likely. Between the captain spot and between the flex spot, probably going to be, like I said, 80% plus on Evan Ingram. He's too cheap for what he does and for his upside. Travis Kelce, obviously the superior player, best pass catcher on this entire slate, but he's so expensive at $11,000. Obviously I get it if you want to force him in. I think a lot of people are going to force Mahomes with Kelce, so I'm okay with not fading him, but I'm okay with being underweight. I think that against this Jags defense, they're going to be able to pass the ball at will, and I could see a huge benefit to being underweight on Kelce, trying to take something down. So I would expect that I probably will keep Kelce out of the captain spot, even though, again, I totally get him. I totally get people playing him there. Probably going to be 25% or less in the flex. Not that I don't absolutely love Travis Kelce. It really just comes down to game theory and, trying to win as much money as possible. And I think that I can see an easier path that way, being underweight on Kelce. So that's where I'm looking. Kickers are always interesting. I almost always set a rule to only have one kicker per lineup. The exception to that is usually a low-scoring game where kickers have a higher chance to be optimal. Pretty much never put a kicker in the captain spot. Take a pretty extreme circumstance and a pretty good kicker to do that. Here, no kicker in the captain spot for me. Being that it's going to be so high scoring, I'm expecting a lot of touchdowns. So not a ton of kicker exposure. I'm probably going to be, I'll definitely be under 50% on either. I'll definitely be higher on Butker than I will be on Patterson. I just expect that, Chiefs are going to score more points, going to get in position to score more often. I think both teams are going to score a lot of touchdowns. So I can't, I don't have a strong feel that one kicker is going to kick more field goals than the other. I just think there's going to be a lot of scoring. So I'm going to trust Butker more than I'm going to trust Patterson, but I am going to limit it to one per lineup. And that's very similar to go along with the defense here. Going to have even less defense than kickers by far. Probably won't touch the Jags. Just going up against the Chiefs, they pretty much need a touchdown for them to be in the conversation to be optimal. And even then, they could give up so many points that they're still not optimal. Also not really too interested in the Chiefs defense. We know that Trevor Lawrence can throw picks. He had 4 of them last week. Again, you almost surely need a touchdown here for the Chiefs to be optimal. I do like their chances a little bit more. Probably won't have more than 20% of them, however, but they're in play for me. So that's what I'm looking at here for this game. I'm really excited to watch it. I do think, again, the Chiefs are going to win a fairly high-scoring, relatively close game, and that's how I'm going to be building my lineups. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Make sure you drop a like on this if you have. If you're not subscribed yet, pop on over here real quick, subscribe to the channel, and then make sure you check out all the rest of the divisional videos for you this week. I hope you win a lot of money. I hope you enjoy the games.